4.
No, 1 minute, 30 okay, going live. You live now.
Okay. Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to episode 4 of Motor Talk with Witzenberg, Motorpraatjies met Witzenberg. So we just come back from an awesome event on Saturday the 31st at Killarney. And unfortunately for you guys that were trying to live stream, I sincerely apologize for those viewers. We had some serious technical difficulties. But I'm sure we'll upload all these videos and the footage to Facebook and YouTube and other social platforms soon. And tonight, I welcome you to our 4th episode. And tonight we have some really, really special guests. We're going to go into the history a little bit about Gymkhana and Witzenberg Motor Club. And we're going to be talking to some of the legends. Now, some of these legends are kind of old school. So just to get them onto social media is already a challenge. So they already immediately start off with a 10-second penalty because they can't even get onto the link. But anyhow, jokes aside. So tonight we have some really special guests. We have none other than Biden Height, our chairman, our current chairman for Witzenberg Motor Club. And then we're also going to have Patrick Vermaak on. So Patrick Vermaak is, as you guys know, the longest standing members of Witzenberg Motor Club. And he's going to talk a little bit about, take us really back into the history of the sport and the club as well. And then we also have Andre Dreyer, who I've never met in my life before, but I believe he was very, very quick in his black golf. And Mike Nathan, which I have met a couple of times, one of the real legends of Gymkhana in his, I believe it was a 800cc Mazda Rustler or something, but it moved like a 2-liter. So Mike can tell us more about his 800cc Mazda Rustler there. And then finally the toy who I've met and driven with, awesome guy, awesome sports, really good at what he does. And he's also got a Mazda Rustler bakkie, but genuinely with a 2-liter motor in, I think. And then we have Werner Koekemoer, who's a real legend of Gymkhana. He's a bit late, he's still at work, but if he comes home early, we'll get him onto a social media platform. So I want to welcome, first of all, Biden Height. Biden, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks, Abdul. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for having me.
I'm really good. It's a pleasure. You're always good to have because you have so much knowledge and so much, I don't mean good to eat you, I mean just good to have you on the show. So it's really good to have you on the show. And we shared a very great event on Saturday, but we'll talk about it as we go along. I want to get up Patrick Vermaak, my old friend there, who has really left us some really, really big shoes to fill. Are you, Patrick?
Fine, thank you. Yourself? Nice to be
really
back.
Good. Nah, it's we're nice to have you back. And I think we spoke yesterday
on the radio. You just woke up. Just give him a bit of a chance, and you'll be. There he is. Rise and shine, Patrick. It's good to see you again. I was tread lightly over here. I can get into a lot of trouble.
Patrick,
have one foot, but it can still kick. You know.
Yeah, well, and you don't feel any pain in that foot if you kick him.
No, it's fortunate, without it being there, you can't feel it, so it's great.
Yeah. Have you kind of last week you broke a leg to get to the show? The week before you broke a leg to get to the show, and has the leg been repaired, or have you guys sorted it out, or what has happened in the interim?
Slow progress every time, but it's getting there. So you must watch it. You can't stay that cheeky because I'm going to be after him soon.
Well, one day at the Gymkhana, you guys are going to start chasing each other. I hope that will happen. Yeah. Well, I'm not too sure if Andre Dreyer is with us at the moment, but I'll check with our technical guy. Carl, is he on at the moment? Well, maybe he's not.
No, I'm sorry. No, Patrick, if Patrick can send me the numbers while you guys are chatting, then I'll contact him.
Kyle, chuck me off at the moment, and then I can get to chat to you quickly, and we get these guys on, and then we can come back on.
Okay. In the meantime, cool. I'm going to speak to Byron, just to get Byron to tell us a little bit about your event on Saturday. Byron, take us through. You drove the event on Saturday as compared to the previous one, which you were kind of organizing. You were the commentator. So give us a little bit about your feedback about the event, how it was, how the route was, the cars, the people, the feedback about Saturday.
I think, Abdul, the thing that pleases me the most is that every time we have an event, there's more entries. I think we started with 10 initially, that grew to 15. Now we're talking about 27, 28, which I think is magnificent. I think it was a good day from a weather point of view on Saturday as well. The wind did come up a little bit, which can affect everybody, but I think everybody enjoyed the course as well. It was very similar to the last course, which unfortunately I was very jealous when I couldn't race that course the last time, but it was now the opposite way around, going around turn 5 on the embankment, and I think through the scrutineering bay, it was just magnificent, and a great array of cars always. The more entries you have, the more different types of cars come up. You've got the guys that work on their own cars. You've got the guys and girls that come with, some very fancy machines. I know the previous time we had more action from the GT86s. We only had about one or so that was, really competing. I know because Carl van Dijk came in was it Carl van Dijk? I'm just thinking about the BMW that we had, which. The M4, which was actually lovely to see as well. And it was always good to have the likes of Anton Smit, Andre Smit, Nadia Singh. Unfortunately, Sean Pretorius couldn't join us, which was a little bit of a downer. I haven't asked him yet why that was the case, but hopefully next time again. Was not too well. Okay, well, yeah. Okay. I think I'm trying to think of something very smart to say now, but smart things don't come to me very often, Abdul. So I think I'll reserve comment for the next while. But Leon Engelbrecht, definitely always a great campaigner in the Golf Mark II. Having some good fun, and his lady as well, also coming around, and in the Herbie VW Beetle, which was another nice little one to see as well. Very unique, a lot of character. So, the thing is, character and the ambiance of the event, I think, was just beautiful. And everybody was just so friendly. When we always get together, we love being friendly. We're so happy to do motorsports, and have all the fun that we can in a short space of time. Sometimes it just goes very quickly. And then at the end of that, you say to yourself, oh, man, where did the time go?
Fani, welcome to our show. Finally, Fani pitched up with his 2-liter Mazda here. Goeienaand, Fani, hoe gaan het met jou?
Nancy Abdul, Nancy Brian, Nancy Patrick, het mag gespook. Gelukkig het ek 'n dogter wat dan bietjie tegnologies meer gevorderd is as ek. So sy het my gou gehelp, baie dankie.
Ja,
ons moenie sleg voel nie.
Look at it, I said we're going to have some legends on the show. So if we say legends, we kind of mean people that were around with Gymkhana before the internet. So that is like, that's a long time ago. So I was actually...
Appreciated being on your show. Thanks a lot.
No, it's really great. I mean, I haven't seen you for a couple of months, well, almost a year. And we chat kind of, when we have the time, but it's nice to have you here. And I can't wait to get you back on to come and do a celebrity test session with us soon. Hopefully we'll get another date from Kilani. And then we can get you back there in that Mazda 2-liter baie vinnige Fani, like we call him.
Ja, luister so nee, as dit die einde van die jaar is, ek sal graag enetjie nog voor einde van die jaar wil ry, verseker. Anders moet ons een van die ander motors dalk gou uitbring en ook net kom so 'n bietjie kom ry, net dat 'n ou weet ek wil amper sê dat jou bloed net weer slag lekker vinnig loop.
Absoluut.
Daar's 'n mooi kat wat iewers in die motorhuis staan, so jy kan haar gerus saambring.
Reg, Patrick.
Wat van die Jaguar?
That's no net so.
En die klink ook mooi.
En dis 'n rear-wheel drive, Nafani?
Dis rear-wheel drive en die Mazda is mos nou four-wheel drive, so dis twee heeltemal verskillende voertuie.
Ja, die Jaguar gaan baie mooi hanteer. Ons sal 'n roete uitstel vir jou wat sommer lekker jy gat kan uitkom maar op Amelie County of so, né? So Patrick, I was chatting to Byron now about Saturday's event. I want to get over back to you, Patrick, because we kind of want to talk about the history of Gymkhana here. And I mean, I met Fani. I think one of the first Gymkhanas was Mauriceburg or Series, if I'm not mistaken, where I met Fani. And I thought he was such a humble guy. And he was like, no. I think when I met you, you and Rafiq were contending for the Mauriceburg, the last event at Mauriceburg, which was so technical. We had to drive on the gravel. Mr. Patrick Vermaak, should I let's not say anything. And I'm still busy washing my car from that day. It's no full gemors. But anyhow, Patrick,
we've always maintained that Gymkhanas is the basic concept of rallying. So we just took it a little bit further on that day. Unfortunately, the route was narrower than anticipated. The route was drawn up without actually seeing the venue. And when we finally got there and saw the venue, that's the best we could come up for the day. And to be honest, everybody could have stayed on the tarmac, but they chose to make the route wider in order to get better lines through corners and so forth. So I'm not all to blame for it, but being competitive, see Fani's horns growing there as I'm talking, they start figuring out how they can get quicker and quicker, and that meant that they had to go onto the gravel to straighten out for quicker times. And yes, it turned into quite a spectacle. Some people really didn't like it. Like I can well imagine what must have gone through Gunther Appelgryn's mind, because that car is always impeccable. I don't think dust comes close to it anywhere in the world. Yeah, Fani and them got a bit serious on the day, but it was at the end of the day another fun event, and I think it basically supported the theory of rallying, and they got a real taste of a mini rally on the day.
Well, I must tell you some of this. This is actually it's a funny incident, because it's one of the first Gymkhanas I attended, and I came with basically a race car from the track. So with slicks on everything, and I couldn't even fit through the cones. My tires touched the cone. I see Fani took off these two narrow spare wheels. Reg of verkeerd, Fani? And I'm thinking, what is Fani doing?
Ja, ek van die dag, ek dink dit is hierdie Volkswagen, dis Marie, ons noem dit Marie beskuit wielietjies, het ek agterloop opsit, net dat ek geweet het dat ek agter 'n bietjie nouer is, net om te kom deurglip, 100%. By the way.
You know, it was, and I think to myself, how am I going to get my car through this? It's like we virtually came to a standstill to check how to come through this. It was amazing, I must be honest. And anyhow,
what was interesting about that event is Rafiq and Fani were virtually tied on point. Well, they actually did tie on points at the end of the day.
We tied, yeah.
Yeah. So even though it wasn't everybody's favorite event, and certainly I must agree, I would have liked it to be on a wider surface and a bit more normal as far as Gymkhana routes are concerned, and it couldn't have been tighter. I think Fani lost by 1 point. No, he didn't lose by 1 point, but the tie was split in Rafiq's favor, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, we tied on points for the championship, and I think he won the first event, and the championship went to him. Yes, that's what happened. Yeah.
But it does say something about the competitiveness of the series and the spirit in which these guys tackle it. It was fantastic to see two very different drivers, two very different cars. Rafiq was the new boy on the block. Fani was the veteran. Fani is squeaky clean and neat in his driving. That Mini was developed by Leon Engelbrecht into quite a phenomenal weapon, and it was fantastic to see a newcomer step forward and really take the challenge to the senior guys. Fani, a question I would always like to pose to you is it's a Mazda Rustler. A Mazda Rustler basically created the whole hoo-ha around Gymkhanas with Mike Nathan at Mykonos. Is that where the concept was born for your bakkie, or was it something that you decided on yourself? Because I think there's no other form of motorsport that can claim a success rate like this with a delivery vehicle, if you want to put it that way. If only in the Gymkhanas will you find a Rustler being a potent motorsport weapon.
Fani, just
Yeah,
before you go on there, Fani, just before you go on, I just want to say hi to Chet Meyer and Monique Engelbrecht and Nadia Singh. They were at the last Gymkhana. So, and Leon, hello Leon. Well, all I can tell you is if Chet Meyer drove in Moodiesburg, that route that we're talking about, Fani, with his Subaru, I doubted very much you'd have ever come back to a Gymkhana. Fani, take us through that. That was very interesting because you had a 2-liter, am I correct in saying a 2-liter Mazda Rustler? Am I correct?
Yes,
take me.
100%. It's a
Fani, you gotta just give me 1 second. I
Hello,
just want to
Andre.
welcome Mr. Dreyer here. Mr. Andre Dreyer met the SWAT Golf. I've never met you, but I just know it's an honor to have you on the show. But we're just busy talking to Fani quickly about his Mazda 2-liter Rustler here. As compared to Mike Nathan's 800cc Rustler, it was so quick. Luister, Fani, take us through this. Why did you choose a Mazda Rustler? That thing was phenomenal.
Obviously, Mike proved that a Rustler were really a very good weapon. And when we drove, and I'm glad Andre is with us. Hi, Andre. Mykonos in Langebaan were actually the event. I mean, Patrick will tell you, it attracted over 100 competitors at a time. So I think there were certain stages, it went to 103 or 105. In other words, they had to limit the runs or the competitors. So the Mykonos idea was a more smooth track. And the Rustler with its longer wheelbase were actually more suited to Mykonos and that type of events. And later on, and Patrick will be able to help us here, we had a guy called Brent Lawrence actually used his handbrake. And later on, when Patrick saw that, let's say we have to make the Gymkhana courses a bit tighter, I obviously had to develop another skill, and that's using the handbrake. Because the Rustler is actually a longer track type of vehicle on a Gymkhana. Just to give you a bit of background on the Rustler, yes.
Okay, so that's okay. So I just want to welcome Andre. Andre, kan jy ons hoor? Okay.
I don't think you can hear us. Just want to just point and just bring up something as well. We spoke about Brent. You spoke about Brent Loring's Fani. Now comparing two cars, that was still with an Opel Kadett GTE that he was in. Was he at that time? I remember that yellow one. And now, of course, you take now the Rustler that is the longer wheelbase. This slightly shorter wheelbase of which also a great little car as well, a little Kadett GTE. Just thought I think my memory is still good compared to some people.
Brent was
Byron,
amazing.
100% correct. 100%. That's the right car, yes. Very competitive, very fast, very agile, brilliant Gymkhana vehicle.
He was also one of the guys that put in the most effort to learn the skills of Gymkhana. He was forever practicing to such a degree that on a Friday night I would go and fetch him out of the fence at Mykonos when he was practicing illegally at night. But he was a great competitor. I really hope we see him back again. He stopped Gymkhana to concentrate on his son doing go-karting. But once again, that is another development from the Gymkhana element, is that you can progress from here into other categories of the sport. And I don't know if anybody follows his son in go-karting, but I hope it's as successful as his dad was in Gymkhanas. We really miss him. He was a great competitor, one of the true backbone members of the Gymkhana series. And that Opel could never be underestimated. There's another yellow vehicle involved that also has that type of reputation, and that is Duncan Jeftas. Duncan, to me, is truly an amazing competitor. He drives with the use of only one arm, and he develops his own vehicle. He does all the work on that car himself. It's a monster Golf now these days. It's got turbo and supercharging. It's got a very unique sound to it. It's got a very unique growl to it almost, which makes it an interesting car to watch. But to see this man in action is truly amazing. And I might add, he won my favorite round of the Club Mykonos Gymkhanas, number 21. That was a very special event. I think any event that can have 21 at the same venue certainly proves a point with regards to its popularity. And well, I just see another name popping up on the screen that falls into this veteran category, and that's Jan van der Vyver for the hopping golf.
Taking some credit there as well, Patrick. Definitely, you know, jumping into the ring.
Guys, just give me 1 second. Andre, kan jy ons hoor? Maar ons kan nie vir jou hoor nie. Is jou mic nie op mute nie? Kyk op die onderste van jou screen daar.
No, he's having mic problems. I'm trying, we tried to sort it out now, but he's trying to put in a headset as well, but it's not working. So I'm going to try to phone him again and just see if we can sort it out.
Okay, cool. So Jan van der Vyver had a question. Sorry, Kyle. Jan van der Vyver had a question there for Fani. He said, was it not your navigator that yanked your handbrake? I assume it's your car's handbrake, and that's what made you go down the handbrake path.
Obviously, they have obviously checked me out pretty well. I had a navigator, Cobus Wilson Jr., and we actually tried it the first time at the Gymkhana. I think it was at Okavango. Pat will recall. And we used it there. It actually worked, and then I developed the hydraulic handbrake that I actually used myself later on.
Okay. Okay, so Byron?
Jan van der Vyver, 100% correct.
Yeah. Okay, so Patrick, just take us from the first Mykonos event, right? Or kind of when did Gymkhanas actually really start? I mean, were you around by then? Were you around that time already?
The concept of Gymkhanas is a proven concept internationally. It's not a new sport. We didn't reinvent the wheel. We back in '98, I unfortunately had an accident in rallying, and was driving my wife crazy at home. And she told us to find something to stay busy with. And a group of us got together and we said, right, in the Pops Roberts series, which was a inter-club series between the 5 rally clubs in the Western Cape, that included hill climbs, Gymkhanas, the Mini Carlo, which is a very, very popular event, and regularity rallies, all under the same umbrella. But for some reason, the Gymkhanas just never seemed to be perfect every time. There was always a fight about somebody pushing a stopwatch too early or too late. The integrity of the scoring wasn't up to standard as far as we were concerned. So we got together and we chatted about what we can possibly do to improve the integrity of Gymkhana. And thankfully, we were introduced to Club Mykonos. The first visit to Mykonos was quite funny because they expected us to have horses there and never realized that the horses were in the bonnets. But eventually, we got the first event on the 24th of July, 1999. The idea behind it was to have an annual event once every year for a maximum of 30 vehicles and just do it for fun, but trying to get the scoring sorted out. Well, as I say in the classics, the rest is history. When we got there, the first event started at 2 in the afternoon because we thought that's sufficient time for 30 cars to do 4 runs on a single lane. We started off with 57 cars and finished almost in the dark that evening trying to make everybody complete the event. It proved to be incredibly popular. We couldn't believe it ourselves. And that resulted in us going back on the 13th of November 1999 for a second event at the venue, also still on the single lane and single parking lot. Those 2 events were assisted by Tigerberg Subaru, and we're very grateful for their assistance from the word go. It was a very varied field that entered. We had anything from a Porsche Boxster to some very, very quick Lotus 7s. The very first event was won by Peter Dagans in a Lotus 7 with a 2-liter Opel motor in it. The second one was won by hopefully a guest later in the evening tonight. Werner Koekemoer pitched up with a Inca Opel supercar, one of the one-make series racing cars designed by Owen Ashley at Killarney. A very popular series at Killarney, very popular cars. Initially, we thought it's a bit crazy to bring a supercar to a Gymkhana because you couldn't see the edges. Once you're inside that car, you literally cannot see the edges of the car. In other words, making it difficult to judge the pavements and so forth. The benefit he had with it being low on slicks and having very, very low bodywork, he was literally bouncing it off the pavements. It was too low to go over a pavement. So he could literally just bounce it around the pavements. And somehow it lasted, and he won the first event, the second Gymkhana at Mykonos. Then he came back for the third round. That was on the 13th of May 2000, and he got clever. He took the bodywork off, and being a tubular frame, that made it perfect because you could see each of the four wheels. You could see the corners perfectly, and he absolutely annihilated that event. Nobody could come close to him on that day. So it's interesting to see that it caters for any type of vehicle. Grant van Eck and the GTI club at that stage was very strong in the Western Cape. And we basically had a gentleman's agreement. He would support our events with these guys, and we would go to do the timing and stuff on the GTI club events and support their events. And at the end of the day, that worked. That was beneficial to both parties because our numbers grew, his numbers grew, and the events were very popular. Then one Mike Nathan arrived on the scene. Well, first of all, what happened in the meantime is Mykonos decided they're going to have a casino built, and with the casino arriving, they doubled up in parking space. So we ended up with two parking areas identical to each other, but also next to each other, which was great because we didn't have to have a mirror image. We could have two identical routes running on the same day. And that very first event on the 5th of May 2001, Mike Nathan and Mike Smith rocked up with that Mazda Rustler of theirs, and well, that little bucky was incredibly quick. There will be a long debate as to what its capacity was, because depending on who you spoke to, it could have been a 1300 to a 2-liter at any given time. But what was a fact is that it was quick. Mike was really good at driving it. He made it fit through those pavements in spectacular fashion, and he thoroughly deserved that victory. Then he disappeared for a while. Then it became GTI Challenge category. We had the two brothers, Nicholas Slabbert and Anton Slabbert. On the 10th of November in 2001, Nicholas Slabbert won the third high performance Gymkhana, or the fifth Mykonos Gymkhana then. I had to add that as well. Leon Skippers and High Performance were fantastic supporters of the Gymkhana series. For 17 events at Mykonos, that was the title sponsor. And, I believe if he kept High Performance, we would still be running under the High Performance banner. It was that popular. But Nicholas won with a Class C Golf. Anton Slabbert came back for the next event on the 4th of May 2002 in the same car, and he won it. And that was a 1600 Class C Mark 1 Golf. Very, very well prepared, very well driven. And the two brothers made history there by becoming the first two brothers to actually win at Mykonos. Not on the same day, but two consecutive events.
Patrick, so we in 2002 now, right?
Yeah.
And that was the how manyth Gymkhana, besides just not Mykonos, but up to that date, how many Gymkhanas had been run in total thus far?
Quite a few, because we started expanding. We started going to Wolseley, we started going to Vredendal, we started going wherever we were welcomed. And as you know, the concept of Gymkhana is fantastic in the sense that we don't need a fixed circuit or a specifically prepared road for it. You can take a Gymkhana anywhere. So it's one of the few categories of motorsport that you can truly take to the people. And that became the objective with these Gymkhanas, is to take motorsport to people, but in a safe and controlled manner. In other words, giving those local people who don't have the opportunity to go to a Kalani or to go on rallies or that type of thing, but they're willing to come and try their talent behind the wheel at a local event. We gave them that local opportunity. We took the events to them and invited them to come and drive. At the end of the day, these newcomers obviously Some were incredibly keen, felt a bit embarrassed on the first day because you always find yourself making silly mistakes. The thing about it is there's nobody in a gymkhana. Even the Fani and the Andres will tell you there's nobody that has escaped making a fool of themselves sometimes.
Absolutely, I agree with you, Patrick. Believe me, I made a fool of myself the first gymkhana I came to.
And
Byron, just coming to you quickly.
Mistake, you feel like the entire world is watching you at that stage, and you can sink away that tarmac. But the bottom line is, we've all made them. You haven't made it. Believe me, you will. It's going to happen. You make the most incredibly stupid mistakes, but that's how you learn. That's where the experience comes into it. And people I truly admire in the sport, it's not only the quick guys at the front of the field. I love seeing Byron Heights arriving at gymkhanas in bog standard 1300 TASs. And
I want to come to that quickly. I want to come to that, Patrick. Byron, just sorry to cut you, Patrick, but as long as I've seen you and met you, you've driven a stock standard TAS 1300. You come to the track with a car, you leave with a car. So you drove on Saturday on the 31st. After I'm spoken to you, I'm going to come to Fani because Fani's got to think about, I want to know where Fani started in gymkhanas. You've got to think about it while I'm talking to you. So you came there on Saturday with a stock standard 1300 TAS. And what is your take? I mean, you drove with big guys, like with fantastically fast Subarus, BM M5s, turbocharged Golfs, with the rest, with the drifters. I mean, it's a whole group of drifters as well. It's awesome. But what did you do? Why do you come there every time with a stock standard car? Tell me your thoughts.
You know, I think that's the essence of racing. And I love the old days of Group N racing, which was very popular in South Africa, where you had showroom cars that could race against each other. And what happens is there was not a lot of fancy money in it. And eventually, yes, I know money does make things go, and you do modify and you do improve. But the thing is, for me, being able to drive a car back home and drive to the event and drive back home at the end of the day is all about the whole essence for me. You know, I love that and everything. I'm on road tires. I don't use slicks on my car. It's a standard 1300, discs at the front, drums at the back. I know there's a few little things I've changed. I've put different wheels, some alloys on, and a few little things, different springs. But at the end of the day, the car stays road. It's a road-going car. It's driven back to home every day, and that for me that's the great thing for me. I like the idea of doing that rather than coming on a trailer. And I don't begrudge anybody that has come on a trailer with their car.
I would like to add, sorry, Byron, I'm going to chip in there. I would like to add something, and that is, even though on paper your car would hands down possibly be the least powerful, the least competitive vehicle present, I'm willing to chance my luck here and say that I doubt whether you've ever finished last in an event.
I would probably disagree with you there, Patrick. I think I've seen that, yes, but I think for me, to be like that, to think that way and say, oh, I'm not doing that well, anything like that, it's besides the point, I think, for me, because what happens is at the end of the day, I'm coming there to enjoy myself, whether I finish first, in the middle, or last. And yes, everybody likes to win, everybody likes to do well, but I do things solely out of the enjoyment of doing them. And if I stop enjoying something, I stop doing it. And it's not solely going to go on where I finish. It's about, indulging in a passion that is a lifelong passion, since childhood.
Would you agree that first event is quite intimidating, that first start?
Yes, very. Watching motorsport in general, watching a gymkhana is one thing, but sitting there at the start line, and we were using the start lights, you're watching the 5 lights, and it's like, you think, okay, now I've seen this before in Formula One, I've watched that. But then what happens is, you're watching each one of those lights, you're thinking about stalling, all kinds of things. It's just, goodness, what happens at the end of the day, there's no way to describe it, actually. You have to do it. You have to do it.
Somebody sent in Ashfaq sent in a comment. Byron Height is a showroom driver. I don't know what it means.
Showroom driver. I don't think I belong in a showroom. I'll tell you that much. But Ashfaq's always giving good, kind words. This is a man actually I commentated on in my first commentary many years ago, 11 years ago, when he was racing back then in Formula Libre. He came back last year, but it was great to actually commentate with him. He commentated the last time on the stream. Always a good commentator, a good guy to know. So thanks a lot for the compliments and the up and up.
Byron, you know, Ashfaq is a very good circuit driver. And on Saturday, we stuck him in two different cars. We stuck him in Leon's M5 with Leon, and we stuck him, I think, in Rafiq's Mini. And these were his exact words when he came out of there. He says, I don't think I'll ever be able to do what you guys are able to do with these cars. And he's a very good circuit racer. So it's an interesting fact to actually, Patrick, just hold that thought because I want to chat to Fanny quickly. Fanny, jy kan Afrikaans praat as jy wil, né? Maar ek gebruik net Afrikaans in selfverdediging, maar jy kan Afrikaans praat. So, Fanny, just take us through. I don't even know. I mean, I don't know how you started Gymkhana. How did you actually start Gymkhana, and why did you start Gymkhana? Take us through your journey.
Byron, I've been watching. Abdul, I've been watching Gymkhanas for quite some time at Mykonos, and that's where it actually started. Patrick just mentioned the 17th one. I think that was my first one. That was in 2006. I actually bought a 16-valve 2-liter Mazda 323, stock standard, normal tires on, road tires, and me, my wife, my brother, and his wife now, but his girlfriend at the time, took our chairs, put it in the back of the car. We entered. We put all the chairs at the side of the Gymkhana at Mykonos. And I will never forget it, Byron, just that you know, one of the most important things in Gymkhana is tire pressure. And Patrick will enjoy this now. There was a guy that was driving with us, Peter Higu. Patrick, do you still remember Peter Higu?
Yes.
And he told me, listen here, Fanny, you've got to pump these normal tires to 2.8, 2.9 to actually perform. And I actually did that because I didn't know anything about Gymkhanas. And my first run, I really just heard tires. Because obviously it was totally too hard, and obviously everybody had to laugh afterwards, and that's how I started Gymkhanas. So Byron, just check your tire pressures, and what I can tell you is each and every Gymkhana you will get better, and eventually you'll be really a good driver. Never mind what you drive, it's just a stock standard vehicle or a performance car that you've been built up. You'll learn how to drive that vehicle eventually, like into its full potential. Yeah, that's when we started, 2006, Abdul.
2006 we started. Just quickly, Andrea, can you hear us now?
Yes.
Andre, finally welcome. Uiteindelik het die golf het geswaai en gestart nou. Baie dankie. Nice to have you on the show, Andre. Kan jy onthoor?
Daar gaan die klank weer.
Ag nee.
Finger trouble, that one.
Okay. Kan jy onthoor, Andre?
Ek hoor julle.
Okay, dis lekker. Sê vir my, ek het nog nooit vir jou ontmoet nie. Maar ek het so baie van jou gehoor.
Nee, jy het al. Ek het Alzheimer's light, maar ek dink jy ook. You have met.
Well, I mean, we haven't driven in the same event yet. Well, I wouldn't want to drive against you.
No, you definitely have not seen me in action. And yeah, I've seen you in action.
Oh,
but,
my word.
Yeah.
I hope it wasn't at Sierras or Moerisburg.
Yeah, that was al by Kilani.
Okay, it became better after a while because I employed the services of Leon Engelbrecht to be my navigator. And yes, ek kan hom baie betaal vir hy moet hê. Nee, ek kan baie betaal. Ek maak my net 'n joke. And Patrick, maybe you can introduce Andre because you know him way better than I know him. Give us a little bit about a background on Andre and let him fire off with some of the questions there.
I've had the privilege to drive with most of these guys, and I will say that each and every one of them have become extremely popular, but with a very distinctive driving style. Andre's speciality at Mykonos was to be so tight on lines that you couldn't put a feeler gauge between his tires and those pavements. And what he did that was absolutely incredible is where a guy like Werner would drive a rear wheel drive sideways, and if it runs out of space, he'd just put his foot down, lift the wheel over the pavement, and carry on the other side. Andre would pull in so tight on the corners that the rear wheel had no choice. It had to go across the pavement. If anybody else tried that, they would roll the car. To him, it was the most natural thing to do. And every time he did it, everybody would go, he's not going to make it. And yet he does, every single time. I know Gunther Appelgren studied this man's lines from the word go, because he's an absolute perfectionist in what he does. And that black Golf had a great reputation at Mykonos. It won the 7th Mykonos with Kobus Erasmus behind the wheel, who's the regional owner. It's the one car in Gymkhanas that cannot run with any other number than 7. So Anton Vandenberg, I'm sorry, if you ever come down to Cape Town, you have experienced that before. Number 7 belongs on that black Golf, nowhere else. And Fani just said now that the 4th of November 2006 was his first event. That was the last event that Andre won at Mykonos in the black Golf. But on that same token, he was always extremely competitive. They're always in the podium positions consistently there. And every other event in the Western Cape, I don't think there's one in his era that Andre did not win. He won in Vredendal, he won in Cape Town, he won in Maritzburg, he won in Ceres, he won everywhere with that black Golf. So it has a huge reputation. And I always say, if you look at these guys next to their cars, you would say they don't fit the profile of a Formula One driver. They're not slim and trim and wearing the latest and the greatest in gadgets. But don't underestimate any one of them. They are very, very capable drivers and will put on a brilliant show. But more importantly, they're willing to share that information with newcomers.
Patrick, I just want to interrupt you there. I disagree with you slightly. They're definitely not trim, but they are bias slim. So Andre, just take us a little bit through this black Golf. It's like this infamous black Golf. Tell us a little bit about this black Golf. Is this car still around? Did you develop this car yourself? Did you build it yourself? What is so good about this Golf?
I think to start with, I did not build it myself. Kobus Erasmus built the car, and there was a couple of legends working on that car. Engine-wise, there's a guy by the name of Wim Dion that Kobus did a lot of the graft himself, but a lot of the intelligence, etc., that went into head, etc., came from there. It was built in the GTI era, so it was first of built as a GTI challenge car, but it was built as an all-rounder. So yeah, just to have a look at it, it's not an ABF 16 valve, it's a KR 16 valve, but it's got a forged steel crank in, nicely ported head, a nice set of pistons, runs a compression ratio of 12 point odd. That's when I bought the car from Kobus. It was on K-Jetronic. It made 126 kilowatts. I think something like 190 or 186 Newton meters. But the suspension was well sorted. It's got a couple of Bilstein shocks, fully adjustables on front, which came from Polo Cup racing. Rear shocks and glass, Mercedes W124 springs, and then a set of glass shocks. But I bought a well-sorted car at the time. I put a lot of effort and development into it. Always looking for that next couple of split seconds. So I think it's much faster than it was at the time. I did a lot of suspension work, small tweaks here and there. Engine-wise, it just went to Dictator and basically different fuel management. Isak van Zyl did the dyno tuning on that. Anton van Bosch was also involved on it, and car made something like 148 on the wheels and about 200 Newton meters. I think one of the very distinct or unique aspects of that car is that it runs a VW rally gearbox that came from the VW Synchro Volkswagens that Sarel van der Merwe and Johan Evertse at the time. I cannot remember who the other VW driver was, but definitely Sarel and Johan Evertse was racing those cars. So got a very special. This box of mine has only got the first and the second that came from those rally boxes. Got a standard third, fourth, and fifth, but with a short ratio of 4.25 diff. So it's a very close ratio box. So it's one of the very few cars that runs a Gymkhana in first gear. I think I see that the Gymkhanas that you do now, my first gear probably won't be tall enough. But the second that I have is very close to the first. So that, in a nutshell, I think is technically what the car is about. But I've also found that over the time that I've worked with it, it became much more loose at the rear. And I think it's because it came much more sticky up front. And most of my attention I spent on the front suspension to get a little bit more grip.
Yeah. Are we going to see that car again in the near future? Do you still have the car?
The car is in makeover since before COVID. I cannot remember dates, but I think end of last year, Wescar Bakbacker has been a loyal sponsor through all these years that I've been campaigning the car, and it was standing outside. It took a lot of hammering, so I talked Jimmy Green into a respray, and I left it. I think I left it there either at the beginning of this year or at the end of last year. And I know it's under covers when I get there. I saw an undercoat, a very nice, well done undercoat on the car recently, but I haven't seen anything else. Whenever I get there, it's under sale. So we'll see what pops out there. It had a broken. It was stuck in first. The last Mykonos that I did was the last race that I did. In that race, it was stuck in first gear. But luckily, I only needed first. So I finished the day, getting push started, and then I drove it home in first gear. But at 7,000 RPM, that's about 80 k's an hour. So it didn't take me too long to get home. The Anton van Bosch helped me. We fixed that gearbox, so it's lying in the garage ready for the body when it comes back. The only thing that I hope for is for some fairy godmother sponsor to come around and maybe sponsor me 4 tires. I've been jobless since December, so money is tight, but I would really like to start joining.
Achta, we're looking forward to having you back because, Gymkhana is kind of sort of, we want to minimize the cost as well, as all of you know. Well, it just depends on the factors out there. And there was a message that said, from Megan, please remember the beach buggy with the alpha motor. So I don't know what that means, but just hold that thought for a second. Yeah, you were saying, Patrick?
There was a blue Alpha Suit 1500 that comes from the same era. Him and Pitch Staten ran that very successfully. But you must ask Andre, how does he keep that beach buggy upright? He had a very unique incident at Club Mykonos, which even he has to chuckle about these days still. Okay,
just hold that thought, Andre, because I just want to get back to Byron very quickly. Byron, you were elected as chairman in 2019, I think, the beginning of 2019.
Beginning of this year, actually. Now that I think about it.
Oh yes, it was the end of 2020. Yeah. It was for the 2020 season. Yeah, yes. and then you instigated this whole COVID thing, so you didn't have to do any work for the first 3/4 of the year.
I am known for my strategic thinking, Abdul. So 2020. But I think what happens is, I think with guys like yourself and Patrick, and also with Pierre as well, you've made a chairman's job incredibly easy. I'll tell you that much. It's unfortunate about the COVID. I'm sick to death of the COVID. I can tell you that much. And I just want to get to events where we can have people again and we can just be fully fledged. That's the whole idea, you know. COVID can go now. We've had enough now.
Well, Gymkhanas kind of have motorsport has the cure for COVID. The smell of burning rubber, the loud noises of those Nissan 350s that goes pops and bangs.
Yes.
The smell of high octane racing fuel that kills COVID. So you guys need to get back into racing. You'll never. That's the antidote for COVID.
I mentioned it last time. Ethanol is also very good for you. I can tell you that much. You sniff that stuff, you're good. There you go.
Okay, Patrick. Before I come back to Fani, Patrick, we stopped at 2006. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Give us another 4 years quickly. After we go back to Fani.
2006 was a very almost special year, because you had the likes of Brennan Green, Duncan Jeftas, Isaac van Zyl, Mike Nathan, and Fani got rid of his Mazda. That became legendary in the hands of a brother and sister combination, Morne and Liesel Roux.
The white one.
Two of the most faithful supporters you could find of any motorsport series, from their dad Marius. Morne and Liesel carried on, and literally I don't think they ever missed an event. Same with Johan Volk in the BMW. He has been around forever as far as the series was concerned. Another name that just popped up on the screen now and triggered some memories is Anton Smit. At one stage we had 3 of those little Datsun Buckies. Not quite in the same league as the Rustlers, but impressive in their own right. I think there's a couple of conquests around these days that battled with those little Buckies. They were decently quick. And Anton is still around with his red one and still very, very, very capable in that vehicle. There's a trophy floating around that I think, look at the smile on his face. That says a lot. The last 3 events at Mykonos, number 26, 27, and 28, fell to that man in his red bucky. And he was determined to get that trophy behind his name. And it was fantastic to see him do so with his son. At the time, a very young man who couldn't see over the dashboard. I believe he's now tall enough to not fit on the driver's side anymore. So, Fani, you had your turn. You won it 3 times. Are we going to see a youngster take over from the old man?
Patrick, yes. I must just keep him away from the vehicles. If I start something, he's with me at this stage. So, yeah, most probably. Andre, jy's nou op die lig. Ek het jou gegroet. Ek wil net gou terugkom op Nancy, Andre, is goed om jou hier te sien, man. Het sal lekker wees as ons weer kan saamry, man. Abdul, daar's altyd fases gewees, né? En Andre wat nou daar sit, hy het 'n klas A kar gery. Dis nou, jy sal nou weet, dis 2 liter en op, voorwieldryf. Nou, toe ek begin ry het met die wit karretjie, Mykonos 17, ek dink Andre het 18 gewen. Maatjie die jaar gewen, die eerste een wat ek gery het. En die volgende Mykonos het Andre gewen. En daarvandaan was dit 'n catch-up game om Andre te vang. Ek dink dit het 3-4 jaar gevat, Andre, om op jou vlag te kom. Dit het regtig gespook, dit het baie ontwikkeling gekos. Andre, soos hy daar sit, was regtig briljant, soos Patrick sê. Ek het nog net 'n ou gesien by Mykonos, dat hy met sy agterwiel oor die sypaadjies ry. Hy het nie om hulle gery nie, hy het oor hulle gery. Sy lyne was letterlik perfek. En Andre sal nou onthou, en toe daar 'n man op die toneel verskyn, ek dink ek en hy die eerste byeenkoms saam gery, Patrick. Dis Isaac van Zyl, wat ons nou almal ken in die Dynotech Lexus, Toyota. Ek en hy die eerste een saam gery. Ons kan net seker maak by Isaac, maar ek dink ons het die eerste byeenkoms saam gery, en die Golf wat Leon nou ry, het daai tyd met wit Max gery. En toe Isaac sy Golf so ontwikkel, dat hy weer die ou was wat moes gevang geraak het. En daarna was dit weer Fani, en toe sit Rafiq, en nou lyk dit my as dit Rafiq en Leon. So ek moet sê is 'n gesonde sport. motor gymkhana. Andre, as jy nou ook dalk iets wil sê rondom dit. Daar's altyd 'n competitiveness en daar's altyd 'n ou wat jy moet jaag.
Dit is so funny, maar ek dink die een ding wat my bybly, moet my nie vra Mykonos nommer hoeveel dit was nie. Ek is nie so goed soos Patrick met hierdie tipe van stats nie. Ek dink hy het 'n bladsytjie hier op die kant, maar ek onthou daar was een wat ons gery het, die laaste run wat ons moes ry vir 'n eerste plek. Toe was die gekombineerde tye en ek het in die top 3 gelê. Nou ek kan nie die top 5 onthou nie, maar binne die top 3 van nommer 1 tot by die derde ou was 0,05 op die gekombineerde tyd. Nou dis tighter as Formule 1. Ek kan nie sê dat elke event was soos daai nie, maar ek kan onthou daai dag ons het bymekaar gestaan, die 3 voorlopers sê, maar okay, ons is 0,05 sekondes uit mekaar uit en dit was lekker tye. En dan partykeer weet jy moet 'n sekonde uit die hoed uithaal, maar dan gaan jy daarvoor.
Wat vir my baie opvallend was ook al oor die jare, en Fanny, jy en Andre het dit self ervaar, die byeenkomste gewoonlik nie, elkeen kry 4 lopies op die dag. By Mykonos is dit uniek, jy kry 2 elke kant, maar jou totaal bly 4. Maar wat vir my altyd fantasties was, en as jy ouens soos Niels Rabe en Pieter Swanepoel daar gehad het as kommentators, het hulle regtig die atmosfeer opgesweep deur die loop van die dag. Maar julle het saam gespeel, ek weet nie of hulle enige druk op julle uitgeoefen het nie, maar dit was gewoonlik die laaste loopie van die dag wat die beslissende loopie was. Die uitslag was altyd in die weegskaal tot aan die einde van die dag. En ek dink dit was die ongelooflike element daarvan. En soos Andre sê, knop jou oë en 3 plekke is weg. Jy kon nie bekostig om 'n fout te maak nie. Dis jammer Mike is nie op die lug nog nie, want hy sal ook vir jou getuig dat hy voel 'n gymkhana by Mykonos, daai 1 minuut of 2 minute wat jy op die baan is dit meer stres op hom as wat 'n volwaardige vollengte nasionale kampioenskapstydren op hom gesit het. Want in daai minuut mag jy nie 'n fout maak nie. 1 fout en jy ry nie meer saam.
Byron, you have something to say about that?
Oh no, like for instance with Patrick saying it's so easy to make a mistake throughout your run, overshooting a cone, and once you've done that, you can go as quickly as you can to try and make it up. It's not going to happen. And it's like this last weekend as well as last event, we had so many incidents throughout the course. Talk about clipping tires and removing bumpers. I know Cheslin Mitchell in the Honda Ballard, he had a bumper that came off. And then I'm not going to mention as well Nadia Singh, who was very, very upset when she clipped the tire in her Subaru and added a little bit of orange to the white paint. So it just shows you how much, everybody's pushing. We're going so close to the limits, and what happens is, just making those little errors that you think about, and you don't forgive yourself very easily. Get back out there again and really just push it so you can actually make up for your mistake.
You know what was actually very interesting about the last 3 test events that we had post-COVID was that I've noticed a lot of new people, especially at the last event. We had a lot of guys from the Subaru Club of South Africa. We had quite a few guys from the 86 Club. They were the last meeting and the meeting before. We had a nice group of drifters as well. The guys with the Nissan 200 SXs, with the S13s, S14s, those really, and we had quite a few guys with the 350Zs, like the likes of Carl van Dijk and Lorcan Aylward, and there was some really, really good mix of different cars. Road cars. The 350s were standard road cars. They drove the cars home. Some of the drift cars were driven home. And then besides the older, let's call it the veterans in the sport, like, the Leon and Rafik and Anton and Andre,
Rafik.
and those the core group of guys that are always at the gymkhanas. So my thinking is that, well, hopefully I see there's a question coming up here. that when is the next event? Well, at the moment, our hands are tied due to the availability of venues. And it's very difficult, Patrick will tell you, to organize venues when the city is involved, because there's so much red tape we have to go through. It's just unbelievable. And also becomes expensive when you start having events, 2 hours, 3 hours away, and you don't get all the guys coming there as well. So Killarney is kind of a nice central venue, but we don't always have available dates. So that is the other issue. So I'm not too sure when the next, we're hoping for one more event or test session before the end of the year. And you guys will be the first to know, obviously. And then in 2021, we're looking to have between 6 and 8 events for 2021. So we are desperately looking around for alternatives, so we don't have to be kind of, we're not like a dog on a chain, a dog on a leash. So we're looking around for other available venues, so that we have some leeway, and to do a mirror like Mykonos, a big parking lot with 2 identical courses, and have 2 cars run at the same time. That'll be really good. Patrick?
Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, I'm listening, Patrick.
The dual course, or the identical courses next to each other, adds a bit of a needle to it. Where possible, we try to make a comparison between the performances of the various drivers and cars, and try to match people where we could. And it became so tight that it was impossible to tell who actually won a run when they crossed those beams almost simultaneously. It just adds an extra element, an extra needle to it. It was fantastic to see Andre and those guys, and the Duncan Jeftas, taking each other on, and it's visually very appealing. It's not just a stopwatch they're chasing, then it's physically racing a guy next door. And it has an amazing effect on them as competitors as well. Something I would like to touch on is, you mentioned the Subaru Club. In the history of our Gymkhanas in the Western Cape since 1999, and even before that, I can't remember one, only one event has ever been won by a Subaru. And that was Peter Peterson of Cape Ad fame. He had a station wagon, Scooby, and Mike Nathan was actually navigating for him a day. They won Mykonos number 11 on the 8th of May 2004. And he was so happy winning that event that after that he packed up and he's never been back. So he dedicated himself to winning that event. And once he succeeded, that was it. He was happy. He achieved his goal. And that's the effect Mykonos had on people. Another person that I thoroughly enjoyed having at Mykonos was Dave and Petra Kopka, in that amazing Mazda R100. So if you go and look at the type of vehicles present, what ran there and what succeeded, anything can basically win. You had classes A to G competing on the day, and any one of those vehicles were capable of winning. Some of the funny incidents we've had along the way was Andre Dreyer in the beach buggy. He put it sideways, put it on 2 wheels. He put it at any angle you can possibly get without actually falling over. But one time he got so close that he had it on standing still on 2 wheels, put his hand out on the tarmac, and literally just pushed it back, and it dropped back on its wheels, and he carried on as though nothing happened. So he's still cool cat when he gets behind the wheel. Some of the other incidents we've had, Jan de Jong was the first guy to actually roll a car on a Gymkhana at Flamingos. He put it on 2 wheels, headed for the spectators, and took the intelligent decision. Instead of going into the spectators, he literally just put it on its roof to stop it. So amazing that I could think that way on an event. Safety is always first. And, they got out of the car unscathed, other than the egos taking a bit of a dent. But, you can always brag being the first car to actually end up on its roof on the Gymkhana. There has been others. We've had one incident at Mykonos of a guy, two rolling at Mykonos, a Golf. And I think it was actually Tertius van Tonder's car, but it wasn't him driving. I can't remember who that was now. And Jacques Duplessis, who put the 2-liter tires on its roof, which was quite spectacular as well. Even Fani and Andre, I'm sure, can fill us in on a few incidents that they've had, which they don't want to admit, but that caused a chuckle in the car afterwards, I presume. At the time, it's not funny, but afterwards you have to laugh about it. Everybody has those incidents, and I wish sometimes that you can have a camera in the cars looking at these guys, what they're up to, how busy it gets in that cockpit. You will not believe how busy these drivers get behind the wheel.
Fanny, take us through maybe one incident that you can remember. It was close. You're laughing there, so means you have been through a couple of incidences.
Yeah, I had a few, but the one specific one, obviously, look at Patrick, how he's laughing now. He will remember Ceres very well. I had the championship, and I just wanted to try and check if I could do the fastest time. And unfortunately, there were I-beam in my way. So in other words, I got my boo-boo for the day. Patrick mentioned boo-boos. I also got one boo-boo that were in Ceres. Okay, I don't want to talk about it, but yeah, that happened.
Andre, any boo-boos you can talk about besides putting your hand out with a beach buggy?
No, I don't make boo-boos.
Okay, it's a navigator's fault.
Yeah, no, not even that. I had the privilege of having Patrick next to me for many years, and I've said to many people, it's amazing. I don't know what he's saying to me. I haven't got time to dissect that or anything, but all I know is he talks, and I've got confidence all the time. He builds that confidence. But you asked about a boo-boo. There's one that I can think of, which I did get an award for after the event. It was in Ceres, Fani. And as I remember it, I had a very late night at work. So an early morning, I had to hitch the car, pull through to Ceres. So I got there a little bit late. Reminded myself on my way that I have to get my tire pressures right, because for some other reason I had 3.5 bar in the rear tires. But I got the car going, and then it had a misfire or something, which I tried to sort out, and I totally forgot about this clip out of the tires. So, and then this particular circuit had a very nice kink right at the end where a finish flick would work like a bomb. On the second flick, it helps you turn the car, and because it was almost like a 180 hairpin around the second cone. And yeah, as I was coming into this flick, I felt the car, it was well balanced, and I knew if I just give it a little, I could not remember if it was foot off or I think a little flick on the steering to just help it. And the next minute I was looking the opposite way. And then I said, but this is not right. And then when I got back to the pit, I realized these tires, they were still at 3.5 bar. So that cost me that run. Yeah.
Somebody
But
said
Patrick
you
will
ran
remember
over the end marshal. I think it was Dewald. I don't know which.
No, I never ran over that one.
Maybe
he ran away, but I never ran over anybody.
Marshal. Sorry, Dewald is Fani nearly drove over the finish marshal. And if Fani can remember that.
Abdul, ek kan dit nie onthou nie, hoor. Daai een kan ek nie onthou nie. Ek weet nie wat maar kon gebeur het.
Dis net Dewald wat ek kan onthou van hy was die finish marshal.
Andre, 'n insident wat ek kan onthou saam met jou wat ons ook lekker oor gelag het na die tyd is Pakketberg, wat ons konstant op dieselfde draai afgetol het.
Ek onthou.
Dit was eintlik nog
Ek onthou.
Jy kan ons daardeur vat.
Ja nee, hoor julle my? Iets breek op. Dis soos op ja nee, ek onthou goed, dit was 'n nogal 'n redelike slegte oppervlak wat ons opgery het. En dit was omtrent die tyd. Ek het net verwys aan dat die Golf se grip voor en voor het al beter begin raak en hy het baie sensitief begin raak vir enige gewigverskuiwing voor na agter. En nou so baie nou hairpin gewees, so 'n lang draai wat ons gesê regtig hairpin nie, maar so 'n lang maklik 180 grade om. En kom ons in hierdie draai en lekker klammerig en nat en die volgende oomblik kan draai en dan spin ons uit 180 grade. Toe besluit ek sommer okay, ons gaan weer terug, ons kom doen dit weer. En toe ons weer kom toe selfe storie. En ons het 3 keer probeer. En die derde keer toe kry ek hom gevang. En net na ek hom gevang gekry het in 'n four-wheel drift, die volgende oomblik te trek hy voorwiele ons van die pad af binne toe vir ander kant af toe mis ons 'n so voor 'n muurtjie gestop. Dis al wat ek onthou waar dit geëindig het. Maar daar was 'n goeie 2 of 3 sekondes wat ek gedink het ons gaan nie stop voor die muurtjie. Ja, dit was nogal 'n redelike amusante event geweest.
Ons is geneig om almal te praat van Mykonos as die beste van die beste. Maar ek wil daarom 'n stywer in die beurs gooi vir Vredendal ook. Vredendal het sy eie uitdagings gehad, dis op 'n aanloopbaan. Dit het eintlik 'n fantastiese atmosfeer daar. As gevolg van die aanloopbaan is daar 'n bietjie meer ruimte. Kon die bene 'n bietjie losmaak met die voertuie. So die spoed was 'n bietjie hoër en 'n baie uitdagende roete. Wat was julle ervarings daarvan?
Patrick, sorry, I want to ask you something. Somebody sent in a question. So Mykonos started in 2000, you said?
No, 1999.
And when did it end?
2016, we had the last one. The 28th Mykonos Gymkhana was on 15 October 2016.
Okay, so I think Chet asked the question, when did it start and when did it end? So yeah, okay. Byron, coming back to you. You drive, you a commentator, you an organizer, and I mean, how do you actually manage to keep all these things together? You are the chairman of the club as well. How do you do this?
I don't have any secret or anything. Like, I can't tell you really how I do that, but I think actually I can actually say is having a team that is of the best. That's what I'm going to say. I can't overstate it enough, actually. From my side, I think my job has been made very easy by the organizers, yourself and Patrick coming in as well, Pierre as well, the former chairman, of course, our honorary chairman as well for all these years. And I think that is actually the best thing. And actually, at the end of the day, everybody coming together to make these events happen, everybody brings their part. So it can't be one person that just is thanked for this. I think it's the big Witzenberg family, which I think we're growing once again. You know, we're looking at the past and we're saying, wow, there were some great events, there were some great victors, and we want those guys and girls back. And I think it's only going to grow us. And that's why I'm saying, again, I say it, being chairman with a great team is a very easy job with a great team.
Well, thank you for those words. Guys, we have 3 minutes left. I'm going to start with Andre. Just in 1 minute, tell us, where do you see the future of Gymkhanas? You've been to a couple of Gymkhanas, not driving, but as a spectator. With what's currently happening, what do you see for the sport? What ideas do you have?
This is going to be a little bit critical, but I love the ideas of the obstacles being pretty hard. So this cone thing doesn't work so well for me because you can do like 5 different lines around the curve and be similarly fast. There's still an optimal line, but the variance is not that big. And I'd like to see a little bit less of handbrake turns. I think handbrake turn is a specific skill, so to have that in a Gymkhana, I don't think that's a bad thing. It's definitely a specific skill, and if you can do it well, you should get the benefit for that. But I wouldn't like to see a route where you do too many of those, because I think there's other skills that's also important. And I've spoken to Anton van Bosch recently. I think I'm also quite willing to assist in terms of the routes, etc. That one, even if you work with cones, try and get it's set up in such a way that it's a very specific optimal line that would require, pardon the word, but that would require some balls. And maybe if you can, instead of cones, start bringing in some hard obstacles that when you make that mistake, you either got to go around it or over it, but you cannot hit it. That's what I'd like to see. But certainly, I'm hoping that more and more competitors would be coming back. There's a lot of people that I know that has expressed interest, but similar to what I've said to you now, there's an old style of lines and obstacles that these same people also said they miss that challenge. So, and I'm quite willing to speak about that, offline and give some inputs on that.
No, I think that's brilliant because, understandably, you guys came from an era where there was a very different thought process going through for Gymkhanas. When I kind of inherited all this stuff after Patrick got ill, we had to try and cater for a different array of vehicles. Road cars with handbrakes, road cars without handbrakes, drift cars, four-wheel drive cars, cars with no handbrakes, clubman cars with no handbrakes. So we try and set up a route nowadays where it's a little bit for everybody. And I know it's never going to be the perfect route, but at the end of the day, if 90% of the guys are happy, there's growth. And like I said, after Saturday, if you see the amount of new people that was there, that was very heartwarming. But, we always learn from people like Patrick and Ompia and you and Fani. There's a whole lot of wisdom and a long history of success that goes into that. Yeah, so we really appreciate your input. And, we'll see where it goes from here. Just going into Fani quickly. Fani, you've kind of been through from those years to this years, and you've driven one or two Gymkhanas at Killarney, I think. The same questions I have for you. What are your thought patterns? Where do you see the sport going? Where do you think we can improve? That type of thing.
Abdul, we all know if we can get a specific venue, that's obviously first prize. If we can get that, I can't see that the sport just won't grow again like it were in the old days. I'm talking about old days, business days. If you've got a nice, smooth track that, like Andre just spoke about, you can put the track down the one weekend, maybe a smooth track, in other words, with lines, specific lines. The following event maybe with one handbrake turn in it, because not everybody is familiar with it. I think then the sport will just keep on growing. But we need a venue, and that's the first obstacle. And I foresee if we can get that, as a club, it will just really grow, for sure.
Okay, thank you for your input, Fani. Mike Nathan just sent a message. He's sorry he couldn't join us, but I think he's busy rebuilding his Mazda Rustless engine there. I'm not too sure where that comes in. No, he just apologized for not being here. And Duan Brink says, Checkers Brackenfell was ook altyd groot trek plesier vir toeskouers.
Trekpleister.
What is that? What does that mean? What's trekpleister?
Trekpleister is when you just pull it off your arm and then it trekt die doring uit.
It's going to take too long to explain that to you tonight, Abdul.
Patrick?
But it's going to take too long to explain that to you tonight. But the bottom line, you mentioned a whole variety of vehicles now. There's one common factor there. I really don't care where the cars come from. At the end of the day, this sport is Gymkhana. And if you want to do proper Gymkhana, you go to a proper Gymkhana route again. And that must be the goal at the end of the day. Don't come with a drifting car and complain it doesn't fit into this. It's not meant to fit in here. It's a drifting car. But you want to adapt to the style of doing Gymkhana. If you bring a track car to a Gymkhana, same thing. I don't expect it to be the perfect Gymkhana car. But you are adapting to Gymkhana. Gymkhanas mustn't change. The Gymkhana must be the consistent element involved there. And you want people to achieve a certain standard in the sport. Even though you're encouraging the new blood into it, you want to teach them the proper way of doing it. And at the top of the field, you want to see the Fanis and Andres take each other head on again. It's fantastic to see that. It really is a buzz to watch these guys in action and see a close run at the front of the field. We've discussed this a lot of times. I've always maintained in the Western Cape, we don't do gymkhanas for fast cars. We do it for fast drivers. And the bottom line is that there must be a specific style that the drivers must adapt to and learn to do perfectly. The car is immaterial. Whether you come with an A or a B or C, D, whatever category car, anything is capable of winning if the mindset's right in the car. And that's the bottom line. I see Mike making wild statements again. Mike, you can bring that bakkie anytime. I just wish you'd stop talking about it and bring it back. That would be great. These two old toppies on the screen here are waiting and relishing the idea of taking you on a gymkhana. So please come back.
Patrick, for all the years you and your team have been kind. You guys were the center of getting the gymkhanas going, and I can tell you now, it is not easy. Everybody wants the perfect event, but 3 people are prepared to help. And you know what? That is the one of the other challenges that we have. And at the end of the day, you can only do as much as you can, because that happens in any form of sport. Yep. 55 people talk, 3 people does the work. So, and that's kind of, Byron can understand what I'm saying, because that's really ends up what happens at the end of the day. So,
what I would love to see happen, as much as I would like to see all these guys back again, the same applies behind the scenes. I was very privileged in my time that I had a truly amazing team of people around me. The Neville Gleesons, Andre Mitchell, Peter Swanepoel, Neil Graber, whether they were commentating or controlling the pit. Andre Brinkman was known as the pit bull. It sounds a simple job to line the cars up for a drive, but when you have over 100 entries on the day, that becomes a critical part of the success of the day, simply to have the cars in number order, lined up, ready to go. And he had an amazing ability to speak to the people and get that done. Even Mike Nathan listened to him, and that says a lot. We're joking now, but really I cannot stress it enough. The girls doing the documentation, try and think of it. We started at 4 a.m, and you had them in a tent with light, with a torchlight on a desk, and they were doing documentation to get the cars ready so that we can start on time, 10 o'clock. Mykonos was literally a case of start at 10 o'clock and the last car just squeezed in before we had to stop at 6 o'clock. So for the entire day, the cars were running one on top of each other. So yes, it's a difficult task, but when you have the right team around you, it becomes a lot easier. And I really wish that we're getting old. There's no other way to put it. The older team, somewhere along the line, they physically just cannot do it anymore. And it's definitely a requirement to build a new team that you can rely on. You mustn't talk to somebody to plan for Saturday. That must just happen. They just pitch up and do what is required. And that is the standard that we had. And I was very fortunate in that period. And even the drivers, the competitors, they appreciate that because they knew exactly where they stood with these start and finish marshals like Dewald and Megan. Don't chance it because you're going to have a jump start or whatever the case might be. Judges of fact, like Zandre developed the judge of fact element for us. Even today, I can go back to any event and I can go pick up the judge of fact report and I can tell Andre exactly where he made a mistake, what he made the mistake for, and why he got penalized. And that's
no mistakes.
I left it, maar Andre het verkeerd een gekies. Miskien Fani, jy het dalk meer foute gemaak as Andre. Ek het saam met Andre gery.
Volgens Andre het ek 'n cone getrap met my beach buggy, maar ek
jy sal nou nog
sy reputasie was so groot dat ek hom geglo het, maar
Okay guys, I think our time is up, but we can go on forever about talking about Gymkhana because And we only have 3 people there, or 4 people besides Byron. Byron's kind of old and new. So all I can tell you guys is it requires a lot of effort.
Abdul, you said people.
No,
Sorry,
people.
Abdul, you said people. So you said you had 4 people and Byron here. So
No,
I don't know
mean,
what I am, if I'm some hybrid creature over here.
Sorry, let me rephrase it, Byron. We have 3 people from the old era and 1 person from the old new era, which is you. So, and I'm
Okay,
kind of, I don't know.
that sounds a little bit more. That sounds a little bit more normal.
There's
Sorry,
an
Patrick,
easy way
you were
to
saying-
differentiate between the old and the new. If you look at the 3 of us, we are all wearing our helmets. You guys still have to put yours on.
Well, that's why I'm wearing a cap, so you guys can't see where I fit in. But guys, thank you for being on the show tonight. All I can tell you guys is, well, there's always a new beginning to everything. It's not easy. It takes a lot of work, and you know what? At the end of the day, everybody does it out of their own pockets. And I must tell you guys, finally, just before I forget, on Saturday we had the first second generation son driving. In other words, Rafiq and Atira's son Isham drove his first Gymkhana on Saturday. So I'm looking at your son there, and I'm thinking, wanneer gaan hy kom ry? So I'm putting you under pressure, Fani. You on air, live.
Volgende jaar het hy sy learners.
Hy maak nie mos 'n learners om te ry op Gymkhana nie. Hy kan sonder 'n learners kom ry. Jy moet hom mekaar
Hy
bou.
moet dit beter.
So I put Fani under a little bit of pressure here. But guys, also remembering, I came into Gymkhana not as an organizer, as a driver. My heart and soul still lies in driving. So if next year you don't see me on the scene as an organizer anymore, believe me, I want to drive. Because the organizing takes a lot of work and a lot of brain space. Ask Patrick. So who knows, you guys might have to find another team of people organizing while I'm driving. That's my passion, is to drive. But we'll see what happens. And guys, thank you for being on the show tonight. We really appreciate your input, bringing back old memories that people have commented, and you know that you've just really kind of can I now say you've ignited a few people's passion for the sport again. And maybe next week, Patrick, we can get another few legends on the show and talk about their experiences. And so we'll see you back next week at the same time, 7:30, maybe a bit later, but we'll put out the message out there. Live streaming again on social media platforms. Motor Talk with Witzenberg, Motor Praatjies met Witzenberg. And it was so nice to have you guys on the show. And we wish you guys well. And have a fantastic week. And for the viewers out there, thank you for subscribe. Well, just push the subscribe button. You'll get the notifications. We're on YouTube, we're on Twitter, we're on Twitch and Facebook, and you name it, it's out there. So guys, all the best. Have a wonderful week, and we'll chat to you guys soon. Thank you for being on the show tonight.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Nice to have you guys on.